Now, a public interest lawyer, Richard Spoor, says the company that owns the truck involved in the deadly Boksburg crash must face consequences. Spoor says the company is liable for negligence on the part of the driver. Now, last week, an audit cleared Infinite Fleet Transport of non-compliance. 37 people died when the truck got under a low-level bridge. After it got stuck, the gas container started leaking, resulting in a massive explosion. Richard Spoor joins us from White River in Mpumalanga virtually. Richard, thanks so much for your time. That did make headline news, the fact that the truck owners were cleared by that third-party probe that they, of course, commissions. But that's not where their legal responsibility ends, is it?
No, not at all. The company looked at regulatory compliance. Were the permits in place? Did the driver have the correct license? Had he been retested? What were the procedures in place at the company, the formal procedures, that is? And this is what the audit commissioned by the company provided and said that they were in compliance. But the fact of the matter is that they get judged against a civil standard, a common law standard. And there's no question whatsoever that in that respect, the driver was negligent and the employer is vicariously liable for the wrongdoing, the neglect of its employee. So as to whether or not the company has a civil case to answer, the question is answered in the affirmative. They do.
Now, as we know, when we speak to you about these things, it's not a simple affair. It's rather complex. Almost 40 people lost their lives. Many of them, or most of them, people that might not understand the complexity of what their legal rights might be going forward, especially as they grieve the loss of loved ones. But if you are applying that common law standard, if you're looking at potential civil claims, what would your advice be to a family impacted by this explosion?
Well, first of all, that they do have a right. I think that's pretty clear. And I think it's important to just spell out what that is. This driver was transporting a very dangerous load, a hazardous load. And the rules that pertain to the transportation of hazardous loads are relatively simple. 1, you plan your route in advance. 2, you don't deviate from that route. When the driver mistakenly took a wrong turning, he should have stopped. He should have taken instructions. His superiors should have cleared a route for him, and he should follow that route. By taking the initiative as his own self to follow another route, to decide whether or not a bridge was high enough to accommodate his truck, that was negligent. Look, it's a difficult case. I think to the extent that there are complexities flowing from this case, it's about the possibility of contributory negligence on the part of the Ekurhuleni municipality and their emergency services. There is no question that if the Ekurhuleni municipality had complied with the standard operating procedures applicable to emergency response services, this casualty rate wouldn't have been what it was. The rules are very simple. When you're dealing with something like this, you evacuate the area, and it is clear that that failed. So I anticipate that the company will raise this as a defense. And if the plaintiffs, and that's the people who've been damaged and harmed by this, don't join Ekurhuleni, it's almost certain that the trucking company will, to try and apportion at least a part of the blame to Ekurhuleni. They're going to say, well, you know, we caused the fire, we caused the explosion, but if Ekurhuleni had done its job properly, you know, the casualty rate would have been a lot lower, nobody else would have been injured. So I think there are potential difficulties, but overall I'm confident that the claimants have a good case. They can join together, bring this as a class action, and potentially it could be resolved quite expeditiously and with minimal cost to the claimants.
Is criminal prosecution likely in a case like this as well, Richard? Richard, I think we've lost you there for a second. How likely is criminal prosecution in a case like this?
Well, it seems from what the NPA has said to date that they don't have a prima facie case against the company, which means there was no breach of prescribed regulatory conditions. The driver's license was in place. They were following the rules. And what's common cause is that the driver did say to the emergency services, evacuate the area. So I don't think a criminal case is likely to have success, but a civil case based on negligence is certainly likely to yield a positive result.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insight. As always, public interest lawyer there, Richard Spoor, joining us from White River in Mpumalanga.